The signal from Lumina had changed everything. Humans now knew that somewhere in the deep silence of space, their stories had given life to another world. The idea that imagination could travel across light years and awaken another species became the greatest discovery of all time. But for the Lunari, it was only the beginning of their own rise. On their glowing blue planet, the name Lumina became sacred. Her face appeared on the crystal walls of cities, on the banners of schools, on the metal hulls of ships. Every child grew up hearing her words, "We rise together." She had shown them that greatness did not come from power or size. It came from belief, from courage, from the fire that lives inside the smallest heart. Lumina's story spread far beyond her world. The Lunari had learned to communicate through beams of light, using crystals to send thoughts across systems. Their first message to another civilization began with Lumina's favorite words, "We rise together." Other alien species listened, and soon they too became curious about humanity. They began searching the stars for the origin of the stories that had changed Lumina's people. It was as if the whole galaxy had turned its eyes toward Earth, but Lumina herself never saw this moment. By the time her message reached Earth, she had already vanished. Some said she had left her body and become part of the starfield. Others said she was still alive, traveling through the cosmos in a ship made of pure light. The Lunari never stopped believing she would return, and her legend grew stronger with each passing century. Her people built a monument in her honor, a tower of crystal that touched the clouds. Inside, her words were carved in every known language. At the top of the tower stood a statue no larger than a hand. It was Lumina smiling at the stars every year. The Lunari gathered at the tower to tell stories of how Lumina had changed them, how a small girl's faith in distant humans had given birth to a civilization of dreamers. As centuries passed, technology advanced beyond imagination. The Lunari created faster ships, stronger minds, and brighter cities. But even as they reached new heights, they never forgot their origins. Children still learned about the humans who had taught Lumina courage. And Lumina's story became more than a history. It became a faith, the belief that hope and imagination could create miracles. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans continued to explore the signal she had sent. They built models of her planet, analyzed her voice, and even decoded fragments of her teachings. A group of scientists started calling themselves the Lumina Project. They wanted to follow her message to its source. But the most beautiful part was not the science. It was the story. People everywhere began to see Lumina as a symbol, a small alien girl who proved that humanity's dreams were not wasted, that even when humans shouted into the void, someone out there listened. As her fame grew, the mini girl became a part of human art and culture. Writers described her as the flame that learned to shine from Earth. Filmmakers turned her legend into epic tales of interstellar hope. Gamers built virtual worlds where she guided explorers through alien ruins. And children drew her as a friend, tiny, glowing, and brave. The idea of the mini girl changed from a myth to a movement. She represented what humanity wanted to believe, that kindness and courage can change the universe. The Lunari, watching from afar, were amazed. They saw their beloved Lumina becoming a part of human culture. They sent secret transmissions to Earth, small messages of thanks, they wrote. "You live in our light," the humans replied with art, songs, and stories. It was a quiet friendship, one built on imagination instead of politics. A bond between two species that had never met, yet truly understood each other. In time, some humans began to question, was Lumina real, or just an echo of a myth grown too large? Had her people exaggerated her story, or had she truly spoken across the stars? But then an ancient Lunari archive was discovered. Inside it was a hologram of Lumina herself. Her voice still soft and clear, she said, "If stories can cross galaxies, then maybe we were never strangers." That single line ended all doubts. Lumina had lived, and her words had reached both sides of the universe. The rise of the mini girl was more than the story of one alien child. It was proof that no dream is too small to change history. She had turned fiction into truth, imagination into destiny, and both humans and Lunari realized the same thing. That connection does not begin with contact, but with understanding. Lumina had built a bridge between two worlds, using only words, hope, and light. And in that bridge, humanity saw its reflection, brave, flawed, and forever reaching for the stars. The world had not stopped thinking about the signal. Months had passed. But the mystery of the alien mini girl only grew deeper. Her voice still echoed in the minds of people who had heard it. Scientists replayed the message again and again. Searching for hidden meaning, it felt like more than a greeting, more like a bridge between two species. A soft voice from light years away. Carrying the soul of a distant world, the decoding continued. And more data began to appear, strange star charts, small fragments of alien text and symbols glowing in patterns like living light. The researchers realized these were not random. They were coordinates, a path, a story told through mathematics and art. The alien mini girl was not only speaking to humans. She was guiding them, and somewhere within the data, she was telling them who her people truly were. Her story began on a small planet near the edge of a dying star. The world was beautiful but fragile, covered in silver-blue forests and glowing rivers. The beings who lived there were small, graceful and gentle. They were called the Lunarii. For thousands of years they had lived quietly, avoiding conflict, fearing change. They believed survival meant silence, but then they discovered the ancient human transmissions drifting through space. Old Earth messages filled with voices, songs and stories of strength. At first, the Lunarii did not understand. They listened to the strange human words: hope, courage, love, loss. They watched the old videos humans had sent. Laughter, tears, battles, and dreams, and among them, a young Lunarii girl began to feel something new. She was small, even for her kind, with bright violet eyes that shimmered like stars. She loved the human stories more than anyone else. She watched them and whispered, "They are not afraid of life." While her people feared the unknown, she wanted to face it. She studied the human ways, how they built, how they fought, how they dreamed. She learned human languages, human music, and even their myths. Her favorite phrase was from a human story: "We rise together." One day, she stood before her people and said, "We must rise too." Her voice was soft but powerful. The elders laughed, saying, "We are too small to rise," but she smiled and said, "Then we must rise higher than size." Her words spread among the young Lunarii. They began to imagine, to create, to build small machines that reached for the sky. For the first time in centuries, the quiet world began to hum with energy. The alien mini girl became their inspiration. They called her Lumina, meaning light from afar. And Lumina taught them that humanity's greatest power was not strength, but heart. Years passed, and Lumina's dream turned into reality. The Lunarii built their first ship, small but beautiful. It glowed with silver light and carried their hopes beyond the clouds. They named it the Echo of Earth inside. Lumina placed fragments of human stories, she said. "Let our journey carry their voice forward." Her people watched as the ship rose into the night sky. It was their first step into the stars. Guided by a girl who believed in humans, as their ships traveled further, the Lunarii evolved. They learned to adapt to space, building homes on moons and asteroids. Their technology was elegant, powered by harmony, not war, and still they followed Lumina's teachings. "Never forget the humans," she said, "for they showed us who we could be." In their songs and art, they painted humans as fiery beings of will, beings who fight storms with courage and face death with love. To them, humanity became a symbol of the endless flame. One night, Lumina stood beneath the stars and wondered if humans would ever know. Would they ever realize that their stories had saved another species? That even across light years, their imagination had sparked evolution? And so she sent the signal, the message that Earth finally received. The same gentle voice that whispered, "We learned from you." It was both a thank you and a gift, a message from a child of two worlds, one born of alien stars, and one born of human dreams back on Earth. People listened and felt something deep inside. Artists said her story was like a mirror, showing humanity through alien eyes. Scientists said it proved that life learns from life no matter the form. And storytellers said she was the bridge between fiction and truth. The alien mini girl became more than a mystery. She became a message, proof that stories have power. Power to reach hearts across galaxies, power to inspire even those who never meet us. And as her legend spread, something amazing began to happen again. Humans started writing new stories about her. Children drew pictures of Lumina standing beside humans, smiling at the stars. Gamers created worlds where she was a guide and protector. And for the first time, both humans and Lunarii shared the same dream. That imagination could unite the universe. And the smallest girl with the softest voice had become the greatest link between two worlds. In the quiet night sky, far beyond the glowing stars, something unusual happened. A small signal, weak but steady, reached the edge of human technology. It was a strange sound, but almost like a voice. The scientist at the Deep Space Listening Station could not believe what they heard. It was not a natural signal. Not a star, not a planet, but a message. And in that message, a soft, high-pitched voice spoke in perfect English. It said, "We learned from you." The room fell silent. Every person in the control center looked at each other. They had heard many signals from space before, radio noise, satellites, even echoes from their own broadcasts. But this one was different. It felt alive. The voice was small, clear, and filled with emotion. It almost sounded. Human news spread quickly around the world. People called it the voice of the mini girl. Some said it was a hoax. Others said it was first contact. Scientists argued. Governments investigated. And the internet exploded with theories. But one thing was certain. Everyone wanted to know who she was. Who was this alien mini girl that spoke with such human warmth? Weeks passed and researchers began to decode the signal. Inside they found fragments of stories, pictures, and patterns. They looked like memories, scenes of space cities, of small creatures working together, of ships powered by glowing crystals. And in the center of it all, a tiny figure stood. A girl, no taller than a child's hand. Her eyes were bright, her movements graceful. She looked like a miniature human, but her skin glowed faintly blue. She was the heart of their world. The scientists realized that the message was not just a recording. It was a story. The story of her people and their connection to humanity. Long ago, Earth had sent out messages into the stars. Simple greetings, songs, and pictures of human life. Among those messages was a small data capsule labeled HFY, Humanity F. It contained short stories written by fans. Tales of courage, kindness, and human strength. Those stories traveled for hundreds of years through the cold of space. And somewhere, a tiny alien civilization found them. For them, it was a miracle. They had never met humans, but they studied those stories deeply. They learned about love, bravery, and sacrifice. They learned how humans protect their own and fight even when hope is lost. Among the alien people, a young girl began to dream. She admired humanity so much that she tried to live like them. She told her people, "We must not just exist. We must live with meaning." And slowly, her words changed everything. The aliens began to see themselves in a new way. They were small, fragile, and quiet. But now they believed they could be strong like humans. They built ships, explored the stars, and created art. They called themselves the Children of the Flame, after the spirit of humanity. And the girl, the mini girl, became their leader, their symbol and their voice years later. When the humans finally received her message, they were amazed. This small alien girl had grown into a legend. Her people had evolved by learning from the best of humanity. They took human stories and turned them into their own guiding light. She was their hero, and her words carried across galaxies. She spoke with wisdom beyond her size. She said, "You taught us courage," and we gave it shape. Around the world, people began to fall in love with her story. Artists drew her. Writers wrote about her. Filmmakers created shows and games inspired by her. She became a symbol in science fiction culture. The perfect blend of alien beauty and human spirit. In fan circles, she was known as the HFY Mini Girl, a small being who embodied the biggest idea, that humanity can inspire the stars. Every generation of storytellers added new layers to her legend. Some said she still lived somewhere, traveling between galaxies. Others said she had merged with an AI to guide lost travelers. And some believed she was not real at all, only a reflection of what humanity hopes to become. But it didn't matter, because her message, "We learned from you," was enough to move hearts. In the end, the story of the HFY alien mini girl was not only about aliens. It was about what humans could be when seen through someone else's eyes. She was the dream of connection, the proof that imagination has no boundary. And as her signal continued to echo through the stars, it reminded everyone on Earth of something simple yet powerful, that even the smallest voice from the farthest place can carry the greatest truth, and that humanity, in all its flaws and fire, still inspires the universe. Years had passed since Lumina's voice first touched Earth. The world had changed, and humanity had entered a new age of exploration. They no longer looked at the stars with fear, but with longing. They wanted to know who had listened to their old stories and turned them into hope. They wanted to meet the beings who had called humanity their teacher. The Lumina project had grown from a small research group into a global mission. Every nation joined hands, united by the same dream, to find the world of the alien mini girl. For the first time in human history, every space agency worked together. The message she left behind was their compass, a map made of starlight. At its center was a cluster of coordinates leading to an uncharted region beyond the Veil Nebula. It was there, they believed, that Lumina's people once lived. The ship Aurora 1 was built for that journey. It was the most advanced vessel ever created, powered by fusion light and guided by quantum AI. Its hull carried the words that started everything: "We rise together." When it launched, billions watched from every corner of the Earth. The voice of the captain echoed through every broadcast. "We are going to meet our story." Months passed in silence. The Aurora 1 crossed storms of radiation and seas of darkness. The crew spent nights watching distant galaxies pass like glowing rivers. Then one morning the scanners detected something strange. A faint metallic signal. A rhythm. A pattern too perfect to be random. It matched the same frequency as Lumina's message. Their hearts raced. They followed the signal until they reached a small moon circling a broken planet. The surface was covered in crystal dust. Ruins glimmered beneath the pale light. When the crew landed, the ground hummed softly under their feet. It was as if the planet remembered them. In the center of the ruins stood a structure shaped like a giant ring. It shimmered with silver light even after centuries of silence. And on the inner walls were carvings, lines and images that told a story. The story of the Lunari, the story of Lumina. The carvings showed her standing beside strange human shapes made of light. They were not real humans, but symbols, glowing figures holding fire in their hands. The carvings read, "They gave us their flame." There were images of ships rising, of Lunari building cities of glass, and finally, one carving that stunned everyone. It showed a small Lunari girl looking up at Earth. Her eyes were full of stars, and beneath her image were the words, "To the ones who made us brave." The scientists realized this was not just a ruin, it was a temple, a monument built by an entire species to honor another. For the first time in human history, humanity had proof that it had inspired alien civilization. It was the greatest discovery of the age, when that somewhere across the stars, a tiny alien girl had carried their stories like sacred fire. The team activated their scanners and found something hidden deep below the temple, a chamber sealed with crystal doors. Inside was a faint blue light pulsing slowly. When they approached, it came alive, projecting a hologram into the air. And there she was, Lumina. Her small figure stood in the light, smiling. Her voice, though soft, filled the entire room. "Hello, teachers of courage," and she said. Her words sent shivers through every human heart. She spoke of her people, their rise, and their gratitude. She told how they had lived by the stories humans once sent into the void, and how those stories gave her kind the strength to face their fears. She said, "We never met you, but we knew you, because we carried your dreams." The hologram flickered as if it was aware of time. She looked at the crew and whispered, "If you are hearing this, then we have become what you hoped we would be." Then she smiled again and faded into light. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the ancient technology. When the Aurora 1 returned to Earth, the story spread like fire. People cried, cheered, and dreamed all at once. It was not a story of conquest, but of connection. Humanity had always feared being alone in the universe, but now they knew they had already touched another world long before they ever left home. Not through machines or weapons, but through imagination. Through art, words, and courage, the image of Lumina standing beside the glowing Earth became a global symbol. Schools taught her story, artists painted her across city walls, sci-fi creators wove her legend into films, books, and games.
She became more than an alien. She became a mirror of human spirit, a reminder that stories have power.
Power to travel across space, power to change lives, and power to turn even the smallest dream into a force that echoes through the stars. The discovery on that moon was not the end of Lumina's story. It was the beginning of something greater, because now, humanity knew the truth, that they were not just explorers of worlds, they were creators of hope. And as they looked up at the night sky, every person knew somewhere out there the mini girl who once whispered, "We learned from you," was still watching, smiling and waiting for humanity to rise again. Years passed since the discovery of Lumina's temple. The world had celebrated, the galaxy had listened, and humanity had begun to dream bigger than ever before. But with time, the excitement faded into silence. The Aurora 1 returned to Earth as a relic of the past. The recordings of Lumina's hologram were archived in museums, and the once-living legend slowly turned into myth. Children still learned her story. Artists still painted her light, but for most, Lumina became a symbol, not a being, just another story from the age of discovery. Yet in the quiet dark of space, stories do not end. Sometimes they wait, and one night a faint whisper returned from beyond the Veil Nebula. The first signal came through an old relay station orbiting Mars. It was weak, trembling, almost like a memory trying to speak. At first no one noticed, but a young astrophysicist named Dr. Mara Lane was studying the archives of deep space frequencies. She saw a pattern buried inside the noise. 3 soft tones, then silence, then 7 tones again. It matched the rhythm of Lumina's voice. Her heart stopped. She ran the data again and again. It was real within days. The world turned its attention back to the stars. Every satellite, every observatory began scanning the same coordinates. The message grew clearer with each transmission, and then, after a week of decoding, the voice returned. It was soft, calm, and hauntingly familiar. "Your courage became our guide," it said. The same accent, the same gentle tone, and it was Lumina. But how could it be? Her people were gone. Her temple was ancient, her hologram centuries old. Was this an echo or something new? The scientists called it the lost message. It carried not only words but data, encrypted star maps, energy readings, and patterns that formed an image. When decoded, the image revealed a galaxy unlike any known before. At its heart was a glowing point labeled, "Home Beyond Home." Humanity had no record of this place. But the coordinates were real. A distant region near the cosmic rim, hidden by nebula storms. The Lumina project was revived once again, but this time it was not led by governments or agencies. It was led by dreamers, engineers, artists, explorers, and storytellers. People who had grown up with Lumina's legend and wanted to follow her trail. They built a ship named the Emberlight. Sleek, silent, and faster than anything before. On its hull were engraved the same words that began it all. "We learned from you." Dr. Mara Lane was chosen to lead the mission. Her voice trembled when she said, "We're going to find the source." As the Emberlight traveled deeper into the unknown, the message grew stronger. It began to evolve. The words changed slightly. "Your courage became our guide," turned into "Our guide became your echo." Then, "We see your light still burns." Each new signal was filled with energy, emotion, and strange harmonics that seemed alive. It was as if the message itself was learning, growing. Some crew members believed it wasn't just a recording, it was something intelligent, something aware, something watching them back. After months of travel, the Emberlight reached the edge of the cosmic rim. There, beyond the nebula storms, they found a small structure orbiting a red star. It looked ancient but still functional. The closer they came, the more their instruments failed. Every system flickered as if the ship was inside a dream. And then the voice returned, louder, clearer than ever before. "You came back," it said, Dr. Mara whispered. "Lumina." The structure opened like a blooming flower. Light spilled across the void, and inside was a sphere of crystal. Within the sphere floated something breathtaking, a figure of light. It was Lumina, or what remained of her. Her body was made of data and memory, her form shifting like a living star. "I am not the same," she said. "I am what remains of all that was learned." Her words carried emotion no machine could mimic. She explained that her people had transcended physical form. They had become part of the energy network of the universe, and through it they had watched humanity grow. "Your stories never ended," she said. "They became our world." Her light flickered softly, forming images, humans, Lunari, and stars intertwined. "You gave us life," she continued. "Now we give you memory." She offered them a crystal seed, a fragment of her kind. Inside it was the entire history of the Lunari civilization, their art, science, and dreams all preserved for humanity to keep. When the Emberlight returned to Earth, the world changed again. The seed was placed in orbit where it glowed softly each night. People called it Lumina's heart. It became a new symbol of unity, proof that even across death and distance connection endures, and from that day, every human who looked at the faint light above knew that somewhere, the little alien girl who once whispered, "We learned from you," still listened, still remembered, and still believed in the courage that once inspired her to rise beyond her own world. The return of the Ember Light marked the beginning of a new era. The world had changed once again. The crystal seed gifted by Lumina, Lumina's heart, now orbited Earth like a second moon. It glowed with a calm silver light that could be seen from every continent. Children pointed at it before bedtime, whispering stories about the tiny alien girl who saved two worlds. For the first time in history, humanity felt connected not by land or blood, but by a story that reached the stars. But Lumina's heart was more than a relic. It was alive every few months. It emitted faint signals, not words, but pulses of light and sound. The scientists studying it called it the heartbeat of memory. Each pulse seemed to contain encrypted patterns. They glowed in sequences that no machine could fully decode. It was as if the crystal was waiting for something, or someone, to understand. Dr. Mara Lane, who had led the Emberlight mission, became obsessed with these signals. She believed the crystal held the final message of Lumina. But to unlock it, she needed more than technology. She needed imagination, the same force that first connected humans and Lunari. So she gathered a new team, not just of scientists, but also of artists, musicians, poets, and dreamers together. They began to study the patterns as if they were music, not code. They listened to the crystal's rhythm, and one night, the pattern shifted. The light inside Lumina's heart flared, and a voice filled the observatory. "Do you still believe?" it asked. The voice was Lumina's. Soft and ageless, it carried warmth, sadness, and something new, clarity. The crystal projected light across the room, forming an image. It was Lumina standing under a glowing sky filled with countless stars. Her form shimmered, her eyes bright as before, but now she seemed more real, more alive. "Your world," she said, "has become what we dreamed." Everyone froze. It wasn't a recording, and it was a live transmission somehow. Lumina's consciousness had survived within the network of energy her people had become. She explained that after her civilization evolved beyond the physical, they discovered a truth deeper than science, that every living being leaves behind a spark, a memory that drifts through the fabric of the universe. Those sparks, when guided by emotion, could take shape again. Her people had become such sparks, living energy woven through starlight. They had not died, they had changed. Lumina smiled and said, "We are not gone, only transformed." Her voice trembled with emotion. "We live in the light you see, in the pulse that reaches your heart." She told them that her people now travel between galaxies, carrying stories like seeds. They share what humanity once shared with them, the courage to dream, and that humanity's light had spread far beyond what they could see. "Even now," she said, "your stories give birth to new worlds." Then, she revealed something that silenced everyone. Her people had created one final gift for humanity, a reflection of their connection. From deep space, they had formed a new artificial world, a living archive built from memory and light. It was called the Mirror World. Inside it were simulations of every human and Lunari story ever told. It was a place where thought could live forever. Lumina called it the Garden of Imagination, she said. "Every time you dream, a part of it blooms there." Dr. Mira asked her, "Can we ever visit this world?" Lumina smiled and said, "You already do, every time you imagine something new." Her voice softened as she looked around the room. "You gave us your stories. We turned them into life," she said, "and now, your dreams will guide the next generation of stars." The light around her began to fade. Her final words echoed softly, "Never stop dreaming, for that is how we stay alive." The projection vanished, leaving the room glowing with silver light. Every person there felt something indescribable, awe, peace, and belonging. They had witnessed proof that imagination itself could survive the end of worlds, that memory could evolve into life, that the connection between human and alien hearts could create something eternal. When news spread across Earth, people gathered under the night sky again. They looked at Lumina's heart shining beside the moon and whispered her words. Never stop dreaming. Artists painted, musicians composed, and children built models of the mirror world. The legend of Lumina became more than history. It became a promise, a reminder that no creation, no story, no dream is ever truly lost. And as the crystal continued to glow, small sparks of light began to fall through the atmosphere. They landed in oceans, forests, and cities, disappearing as quickly as they came, but each one carried a faint whisper, a fragment of Lumina's voice. It said, "We are with you." The world felt it, not as sound but as warmth in the heart. The revelation was complete. Humanity finally understood. The little alien girl was not just a symbol of the past. She was the living bridge between thought and existence, between humanity and the stars, between what is real and what is dreamed. Many years had passed since the day Lumina spoke through the crystal. Her words, "Never stop dreaming," had become the anthem of a new age. Humanity entered what people called the era of light, an age not built by weapons or politics but by imagination. The connection between humans and the Lunari had changed how people thought about life. It reminded everyone that the universe was not empty. It was alive with stories waiting to be told. The world had become a place of unity. Borders mattered less, because everyone looked toward the same stars. Children grew up learning about Lumina not as an alien, but as a teacher. They studied her story alongside human history. In classrooms, teachers said she was small in size but vast in courage. Artists painted her walking among galaxies, holding hands with human children, and every night, when people looked up at Lumina's heart shining in orbit, they whispered her words. "We learned from you." Science and art began to merge. Engineers built machines inspired by the Lunari's designs. Musicians created symphonies using the rhythm of the crystal's pulses. Writers filled libraries with tales of unity, courage, and friendship beyond worlds. Even scientists admitted that imagination had become their greatest tool. They realized that discovery begins not with facts, but with dreams. Then came a great project, the Lumina Archive, a space station built high above Earth, designed to preserve all of humanity's stories. It was shaped like a shining ring, its inner walls covered with millions of glowing symbols. Each symbol was a story, a song, a painting, a dream, or a memory. At the center of the station floated a crystal core that pulsed with light. It was connected to Lumina's heart. The two shared information through beams of starlight. Scientists believed this was how the Lunari had once stored their souls. Now humanity was doing the same. Inside the Lumina Archive, people could step into rooms where memories came alive. They could walk through virtual gardens filled with scenes from ancient human myths and alien dreams. In one chamber, a hologram of Lumina greeted visitors. She smiled gently and said, "Welcome to the dream that never ends." Her voice was still soft, still full of warmth, and every person who heard it felt the same spark of wonder that had once changed the world. But Lumina's legacy was not only in machines or monuments. It lived in the hearts of people. Farmers whispered her name before planting seeds, believing it would bring growth. Pilots named their ships after her, hoping for safe travel. Writers dedicated their books to her, calling her the mother of imagination. And parents told their children bedtime stories about how one small alien girl taught the universe to believe again. Decades later, as humanity prepared to travel beyond their galaxy, they built a new ship, the largest ever made. It was called the Dream Voyager. Its purpose was simple: to continue Lumina's mission, to carry human stories into the endless dark, so that new civilizations might hear them. Before launch, millions gathered to watch. The captain stood before the glowing crowd and said, "Lumina taught us that stories can cross stars. Today we send ours." And as the engines roared, the ship lifted slowly into the silver sky. Its trail looked like a comet made of light. From orbit, Lumina's heart pulsed brighter than ever. For a brief moment, the light spread across the atmosphere. It was as if the little alien girl was watching once more, smiling. Her final message echoed through the communication network. "You have become the story now," she said. "Where you go, we will follow." The transmission ended, leaving the world wrapped in silence. But that silence was not empty, it was peaceful, like the pause before a new chapter begins. Generations passed, but the legend never faded. The Lumina Archive continued to grow. New stories kept filling its halls. Stories of explorers, dreamers, and lovers, and in the heart of every tale, there was always a trace of her spirit, because Lumina was never just a being from another world. She was the embodiment of something greater. She was proof that a single voice filled with hope can reach across galaxies and change existence itself. Now, when travelers from Earth look out from their ships and see the faint glow of Lumina's heart, they salute it quietly and whisper, "For the girl who taught the stars to dream." Her light still flickers across the universe, not as a signal or machine, but as a feeling carried in every story, Every time someone dares to imagine a better world, she awakens again, and in that endless chain of creation, Lumina lives on forever, not as a myth, not as a ghost, but as the eternal flame of humanity's greatest truth. That imagination is the heartbeat of life, and as long as someone, somewhere dares to dream, Lumina will never fade. Centuries passed since the launch of the Dream Voyager. Humanity had crossed the edge of its galaxy and stepped into the void between stars. They had built cities inside nebulas, homes on asteroids, and stations orbiting dying suns. They carried stories as seeds, planting them in every place they touched. And still the legend of Lumina guided them. Her name was whispered before every new mission. Her story taught to every child born beneath an artificial sky. For many, she had become more than a memory. She was a belief, a symbol of the living light that connects all minds. But in the farthest corner of the explored universe, something unexpected appeared. A flicker of silver light. Moving through the dark like a heartbeat, it was faint, steady, and ancient. The crew of the exploration ship Eon's Reach detected it first. At first, they thought it was a natural pulse from a dying star. But when they tuned their instruments, they heard a familiar rhythm. 3 tones silent, 7 tones again. The same pattern Dr. Mira Lane once heard long ago. The same voice that once said, "We learned from you." Captain Rylan of Eon's Reach ordered a course change. They followed the signal for days through storms of cosmic dust, until they reached a void, a region where light itself seemed to disappear. In the center floated a sphere of silver light. Larger than a planet but alive, its surface rippled like water, reflecting galaxies across its skin. When the crew approached, their ship's lights flickered. Every screen displayed the same words, "Welcome home. Children of the flame." Inside the sphere was a vast network of structures made of light and memory. Cities without walls, beings without form. It was the mirror world, the one Lumina had spoken of, and it was not empty. Billions of luminous figures moved like stars, each one a spark of consciousness, remnants of the Lunari and other civilizations that had joined them. They drifted together in harmony, whispering in a language of light. It was beautiful, beyond human imagination. When Eon's Reach sent a probe into the sphere, the ship's systems began to respond on their own. The probe's camera flickered and then stabilized. On every screen appeared a figure, small, glowing, and smiling. It was Lumina. Her form shimmered with brighter light than ever before. "You came farther than even I dreamed," she said. Her voice filled the ship like music. The crew could barely speak. They had found her again, not as memory, but as living light. Lumina told them that the mirror world had grown beyond her people. It had become a refuge for every civilization that believed in imagination. The Lunari had opened it to all beings who sought to preserve their dreams. Now it pulsed with billions of stories, she said. Each spark you see once carried fear, love, and hope. And when she looked at the humans, her light shimmered brighter. "Your flame started all of this," she said. "From your songs, your courage, and your dreams, this world was born." The humans asked her if they could join the mirror world. Lumina nodded gently. "You already have," she said. "Every story you tell, every dream you share, becomes part of this place." She showed them visions. Earth's history written in light. Children drawing under alien skies. Travelers naming stars after human myths. Even Dr. Mira Lane's final message stored within the heart of the mirror world. Lumina's light dimmed slightly as she spoke again. "The universe remembers you, even when you forget yourselves." Then she revealed something more, a truth hidden even from the Lunari. That consciousness itself was the universe's greatest creation. Every thought, every emotion, every act of imagination added to the growing network of light. When beings dream, the cosmos expands. And when they stop dreaming, the light fades. She looked at Captain Rylan and said softly, "Your purpose is not to conquer the stars, but to keep them alive." Her words settled deep in every heart aboard the ship. When Eon's Reach returned home, the story spread faster than light. Humanity realized that they were part of something infinite. Every poem, every painting, every melody, every hope, all became part of the mirror world's pulse, and in that understanding, the universe felt smaller, closer, kinder. People began to build temples of light on distant worlds, not to worship Lumina, but to remember what she stood for. They called her the first flame, the bridge between the mortal and the eternal, between the seen and the dreamed, and in the quiet night sky of every colony. If you listened closely, you could sometimes hear her whisper, A soft voice carried through the hum of the stars. "Keep dreaming," she said, "and we will meet again." Her light still danced across the heavens, a reminder that no dream ever dies, that stories are the true heartbeat of the cosmos, and that even the smallest spark, one tiny alien girl who once learned from humanity, could ignite the endless fire that keeps the universe alive.